Well, it's that point in the month where we get together with our honored journalists and we kind of talk over what's been going on around our state and across the nation, and especially how it affects us here. Ziva Brandstetter couldn't be here today, and we have a new fellow in the chair, Kevin Canfield. Kevin, you're with the Frontier as well, aren't you?
That's right. Nice to be here. Appreciate you.
Good to have you here.
Be part of it.
According to my friend to the right, your reputation is immense.
Yeah, Kevin does some good stuff.
I'll take that as a positive. Thank you.
All right. Charlie Biggs with the Beacon, John Durkee with Public Radio Tulsa. And listen, John, I owe you an apology.
Again?
This one's in public.
Oh, okay.
John was named by the press club as an icon.
Media icon.
How did that work?
Apparently all of the other icons were busy that night.
Everybody else out of town? Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you.
That's
It was nice. It was a nice gathering.
Well, it's deserved.
So, yeah. You kind of wonder when you get a Lifetime Achievement Award if they know something your doctor has told them that he hadn't shared with you.
They talked to the doctor and saw your doctor, at lunch. Well, anyway, we have several items of interest that I think you fellows will want to take the ball and run with. Most recently, Oklahoma leads the nation in the deepest cuts to school funding for the third straight year. What does this say about the state?
It's not surprising. That's the way we've been headed and continue to drop down that way. So I wasn't surprised to see it.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised either. I think the timing of it is interesting with the state question that we'll get to, I suppose, at some point. But with the one-cent tax that they're looking to pass in November 8th, I just was struck by the timing. And I'll be interested to see how that vote turns out, because I think there are a lot of people who are frustrated perhaps with how the legislature's handled funding for education. So it'll be interesting to see whether that shows up when people go to vote on November 8th.
Do you think they'll do anything different for education?
Well, we had a $1.3 billion budget shortfall for the 2016-2017 budget, state budget. I think the Board of Equalization is going to show another pretty deep cut for next year, budget-wise. Here's the problem: passing the tax, which they say will produce $600 million, and they say it's going to go into a lockbox so that it's going to go for teacher raises. Every teacher will get $5,000 raise, but I've already talked to a couple of lawmakers who've said, you know what, if they're getting that much money for education, the money we appropriate for education, we're going to cut that back some.
You remember, we talked about this very thing.
That has happened in the past in the state with the state lottery.
Right.
Proceeds that were supposed to go to the lottery, yes, they're getting them, but the legislature cut back the appropriation by a like amount.
So that sounds like folks are in lockstep to step on education.
Well, these people that I've talked to, they say, we don't want to do that. But you had to borrow $250 million for roads and bridges. You had to borrow $125 million to finish the state capitol refurbishment. So you're borrowing hundreds of millions of dollars, and you have a declining revenue source. And so they're looking for anything. Plus, and people don't know this, but because of the state retirement fund was so deep in the hole.
No, just a minute, Charlie. Are you saying, in effect, they're saying we're going to teach you, the voters, we're going to teach you a lesson?
No, they're saying that we have no choice, that we can't keep borrowing for budget items, and that we're going to have to balance the spending somehow. And if you have a $650+ million coming into education that wasn't there before, that becomes a target, for some cuts. And I know that David Boren, he wanted to ensure that couldn't happen, but I don't know how you do that, because it's happened in every state that's had these similar problems. That's what's happened.
I think it's interesting. I cover City Hall at the Frontier, and during the election, Mayor Bartlett was against the tax, and Mayor-elect Bynum was for it, although he sees it as a stopgap measure. And it'll be interesting to see if it passes, what the reaction will be a year or two down the road, to see if, like you said, they just reduce the allocations by the amount they're getting from the new tax, whether there'll be some second thoughts about it. And also, you're getting a lot of pressure from municipalities who rely on sales tax, including Tulsa, who don't want to see the sales tax rate increase by another penny. They think that'll dampen the economy. So I think,
Claremore is one of those.
yeah, I think it'll take a couple years to shake out and see whether the things we're talking about now actually happen, whether it depresses the economy, whether it ends up taking money out of other places in the budget.
Well, a lot of people that are normally before a tax increase for education are against it, and one of the main reasons is because sales tax is so regressive and has such a disproportionate impact on poor people.
Kevin mentioned the cities. You know, we have a third penny sales tax in Tulsa. Well, when it comes time to renew that, will people be willing to do that again with the sales tax at 10%? And people at City Hall are nervous that people will say no, enough's enough. So I don't know how, honestly, I've seen the polling where the question is doing very well, but I also hear a lot of people talking about this is not the right way to do it. And, you know, I know Mayor-elect Bynum has talked about the stopgap measure, but I've never known a sales tax to ever go away.
No, they don't. Once they're in place,
They're there, so, you know, how's that a stopgap?
really. Well, and I also saw, this is moving on to the next one, general revenue is continuing its decline according to the September figures, which tells us, you know, massive cuts are coming. I mean, bad ones. And I'm not quite sure where they're going to take them.
Well, I've heard another revenue failure, maybe right after the holidays, or right after the election, actually. Anybody else heard that?
I heard, yeah, someone mentioned it to me, and like you, I don't know where they're gonna, what's left to cut. I mean, obviously there's places they could find it, but I off the top of my head, I don't know where they're gonna reduce expenditures. Yeah.
You know, I recall a year ago, of course, you weren't with us at that point, Kevin, but about a year ago, I pointed out that my wife and I had been on vacation and had gone out Route 66. We went east first, and then we went west to try to stay on the road as much as we could. But we came back through Arizona, and on the way back, and all of the roadside pull-offs were closed. Truckers were lined up on the highway, on the freeway, off on the shoulder, sleeping there. And so I pulled into a place, you know, had coffee and all that. What's going on? He said, well, we've had so many cutbacks. We had to close our state parks. We've had to close rest stops, you know, and all this sort of thing. The state just doesn't have the money. And I wonder if that's something coming for Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to close our porta potties at our rest stops.
Those little signs that say,
We have no
"Drive
facilities." We have no facilities at our rest stops.
Boy, that's true. Well, we can't, well, you can sit here all day and list the things where we can't take the money. You see any place out there we can take it?
No, you hope to grow your way out of this, and one of the things that could be a turnaround is the price of oil, but there will be some delay in that too. But we're just going to have to prioritize certain things, and it may force some reforms onto some of these state agencies that they haven't been really willing to discuss. For instance, the consolidation of school districts, not the closing of schools, but you have a lot of, I think 520 school districts in Oklahoma.
Over 500, yeah, for sure.
And there'd be an economy of scale by getting rid of a few superintendents. It's not politically popular with the urban areas, but not closing schools, but just saying, you know, you have a superintendent over there, have 3 districts in this county, and you have one superintendent with 100 students, and he's making $100,000 a year. You know, maybe we should combine that into one district with one superintendent, keep all the other personnel in place, and you could have a pretty significant savings then.
Yeah, and in fact, we used to have a county superintendent of schools. Right. In fact, you were talking earlier before we took air about Ken Neal. I think his wife at one time was one of the superintendents. Yeah. So we had that infrastructure in place. We've done away with it.
I mean, as we did with 1017, we did away with that too, didn't we? Just kind of went out the back door. Well, I'll tell you what, I've got something I want to get into here about a proclamation the governor issued, but if I do it, we're going to have to stop in the middle and take a break. So I'm going to go ahead and take the break early, and when we come back, we'll talk about the governor's latest push for a proclamation right after this.